Are we good? I think we're good.
Are
I think we're live.
we live? Is this
I
thing
think so.
working?
Is
Man,
this
let
on?
me put my hat on.
All right. So we're doing this through StreamYard.
We are. We are. You know what? Of course, since this is obviously live TV or live, I've got to grab my phone.
Oh, what's up, everybody?
I'm back. What's up, people?
How's it
Got a little bit of
going?
a different look here today. We're trying something new. And hopefully everybody will be able to, to jump in without a problem. I'm Marlon Weems, the publisher of the Journeyman newsletter. And as always, I'm here with my good friend, Arturo Dominguez, who publishes Decolonized Journalism. And
Yep.
this is a show with no name.
Yeah,
Man, I don't know. I just don't know what we could possibly talk about today. I
I
don't
have
know.
no idea.
I finally
so much.
realized, I am functioning as a co-host / producer. We'll see how that works. I'm trying to. I almost used the word bribe because there's no pay involved. So I'm going to try to figure out how to get my daughter to maybe serve as a moderator, and we'll see how that works out. Anyway, not very much going on this week, Arturo. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually, it's, I don't know, situation's kind of ugly out there.
It is ugly, and I mean in a lot of different ways. As a matter of fact, it is I'm looking. I mean, this is just market talk. My son called me. He's into cryptocurrencies like
Yeah.
heavily, and the bottom is falling out of everything. And the reason is, from what I can tell, it's the Epstein files.
Right.
It's the Epstein files. Yes.
I know
And
crypto was on a little downturn right before, but it
oh
seems
man,
like
it's falling out of bed.
yeah.
I mean, it's in the, well, you got to keep in mind, cryptocurrencies were, Bitcoin was trading well above 100,000. Almost said 100,000 a share, but that's not right. Whatever. But the last I checked, it was in the 6,000 or 60,000 something.
Wow.
Yeah, it's collapsing, and pardon me, and you have to know, Trump is leaning on that market. Well, that's the wrong way to say it. He's propping that market up so hard.
Yeah.
That, I mean, because he's got so much money tied up in it, and so many people are bribing him. So it takes a lot to pull. And it's not just Bitcoin, by the way. It's all, just a lot of the other currencies that come into play with stable coin and all of that. But, we can say that that catastrophe for another day.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen some things about, I don't know, there's a lot of speculation about what that's going to do, but yeah, I'm not all that invested in even knowing about it, let alone monetarily, so I'm not sure what to make of any of that. Yeah.
Man, I think the most interesting part of it is that the Epstein files are playing a role and the reason is that there's a whole lot of conversation, evidently, and I haven't even had a chance to figure out what that is. But part of it is that apparently Epstein was an early investor in Bitcoin in some way. And,
Wow.
he was working with, it's a really interesting phenomenon to me. obviously, the guy's a pedophile. Let's not downplay that. But at the same time, he is connected across the elite, not just the politicians, it's the billionaires, it's the tech guys, it's in academia.
Yeah.
Okay? This guy's connected to MIT, he's connected to Harvard. Look at what happened with Larry Summers, the perfect example. Here's a guy, he's only ever worked for Democrats. He was a Treasury Secretary under Obama, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. He was an advisor to George Bush, not George Bush, but Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Now, I wrote an article during COVID about Larry Summers, and I don't remember the exact title of it. I'll post it here in just a second in the chat room. But he, the title of it is Larry Summers is a brilliant something jerk, because he was basically arguing against anybody getting COVID money. He said it was going to be inflationary, and we had inflation, but I pointed this out the other day. We had inflation because we had, just this shock.
Yeah.
Where where all of the levers of, delivering product, everything just got stuck. And then when COVID was over, you just had this massive pent up demand. Man, I tried to buy a bicycle during COVID, could not buy one.
Yeah.
Just basic stuff. And the reason was the bike was sold by a company in California, but all the parts came from China.
Right.
So that was, once COVID sort of died down, then that's when we got inflation. And then, but at the same time, the Fed was pumping so much money, trying to save these banks. It's just as responsible. So anyway, all that to say, Larry Summers has been on my radar for a minute. That said, I am very surprised to see him in the Epstein files. I mean,
I mean, there's a lot to the Epstein files, and that clip we watched right before we came on the air was one of those things. Is how they see the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. What? Why don't you hold that thought and I'm gonna cue this clip up. Okay. This is one of the reasons, folks, that we really are excited about sort of stretching the platform a little bit, because it gives us some capabilities. No shade on Substack. It certainly worked great for me thus far, but this is just a sort of a step up a level. So this was actually a gentleman that is on Substack. I believe the name of his publication is The Ink, Anand Giridharadas. And I always wonder if I'm saying his name right. I think I did. But I'm going to let the whole thing play, and then on the other side, we'll talk about it.
White House counsel, lawyer representing the American presidency. Now, in the way that is normal in American life, she's the chief lawyer for Goldman Sachs.
Yeah. Wow.
And they're trading advice. She's getting his advice on, should I become attorney general? She's taking the advice of a convicted sex offender on should I accept Barack Obama's potential offer to be attorney general. And he's telling her, she's giving him advice about his situations in life. And in this very striking scene, she describes driving up to New York, and she says, I will stop at a rest stop at some point in New Jersey on my way up to New York, and I will see, no doubt, all these people who are 100 pounds overweight, and I will be shocked by it, and I will be moved to never eat another morsel of food in my life so that I never become like them. I just want to say to people watching this is what people in that class think about you. You don't normally get a glimpse. You see them on TV. You see them on their curated social media that someone else is doing for them. These emails are a glimpse of how people in this Epstein class feel about you. They feel you're a slob at a rest stop that they unfortunately have to stop at to get gas. And very strikingly, that a few years later, Goldman Sachs described the anti-obesity drugs as a $100 billion opportunity, which captures something fundamental. These folks always have a way of profiting. They profit when it's going this way. They profit when it's going that way. When the regimes, Ken Starr persecuted Bill Clinton for sexual misconduct. Ken Starr reinvented himself as then a defender of Jeffrey Epstein. Whatever happens to you and your family, these people will find a way in this Epstein class to make sure they're on top.
You have found a way to make today more depressing. Thank you very much. If that was possible, but great insights.
I work hard at it.
Yeah, Ani Giridardis, thank you.
I mean, there you have it.
Carry
right?
on.
Right. It's he's talking about them profiting both ways. That's like the industrialization of everything, right?
Yeah.
They make you overweight and then they profit off taking the weight off of you. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's it.
But it's one of those things, like what he's talking about is how they see us, right? And he calls it the Epstein class, and I get where he's coming from, but it's really the billionaire class, right? I mean, let's face it, they look down on us like we're peasants, and we're the ones making them all the money.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where people are getting upset with capitalism, right? This is where socialism is becoming more popular, just in theory, right? And it's this idea that we're only worth what our gross domestic product is, right? What we put out, our output, our labor output. That's how our government derives value from us. And there's people in the middle that are profiting off of that. And it's one of those things where I always go back to when I was in doing trades and stuff, you go out to do a job somewhere and the company you're working for is charging $60 or $80 an hour for you to be out there, but they're only paying you 15 or 20.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like they're profiting a ton off of my labor, and that's my value to what my government deems value ends up going, and most of it goes in somebody else's pocket. And that's where a lot of these people are starting to get disenfranchised with 9-to-5s and having to go to, to an office all the time and be beholden to all these things. And it's just, they look down on it. It's a class thing at some level. That's the biggest thing. We can't overlook the racism and stuff that's all part of that. But, that's what it boils down to. That's how these billionaires see us. They see us as things, what they did to all these girls and stuff. They're like playthings. Like these guys have so much money and power, they think they're entitled to do whatever they want to us. And they have their eyes on certain sectors of civil society, but we're all a target for them in one way or another. And just to see how little they value life and things like that, like it really does explain how we can just go bomb other countries and blow people to bits, and people in government just seem to shrug it off.
That's collateral damage.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking at, and that's what a lot of what the Epstein files expose, as terrifying and as horrible as everything that happened surrounding that fucking guy. Excuse my French, but surrounding that guy.
It's an adult show, so
yeah. So I mean, there's all these other underlying factors that come with that. There's a whole culture with these wealthy elites, and some of the weirdest things you've ever heard about wealthy billionaires doing behind the scenes is now, well, maybe, you know what I mean?
I mean, when I saw Eyes Wide Shut years ago, I saw it in the theater. And it's going along. I didn't really know what to expect. It's Stanley Kubrick, and
right.
But dude, when it got to the scene, you don't even need to go into detail,
right?
But where he goes to this party where you got to have a password, and it's outside of Manhattan, and it's just, I mean, it made Puffy's, freakathon or whatever the hell he called it. It put that to shame. And I'm just sitting there in the theater, and my my wife is sitting next to me, and we're just kind of like Well, this took a turn, didn't it?
Yeah.
But you know what though? And there's always a conspiracy theory that, he was really trying to like expose some shit, but it just, to your point, it is so pervasive. It's not anything to do with party. You got
Right.
Deepak Chopra is in there talking, saying stuff, man. It's like my wife's got so many of his books and has followed him for years. And then you see this guy that, I think it's fair to say people, have these people, a lot of these people on pedestals, right?
Yeah.
And this guy just behind the scenes, and it lets you know it's all an act. It's a lot of it is just all an act. And I don't know, man. I grew up in this, I grew up in the 60s. So I have just not a vivid recollection, but a recollection of the leaders that we had at that time. Martin Luther King wasn't perfect. Neither was Malcolm X. But man, they were so different. It just feels like to me they were so different. And I don't know who that person is. Who is the person that we would look to now on that same level? I don't think we really have anybody. I think we're looking at them.
Yeah.
It's like, I think wasn't it Obama that said we're the ones we've been waiting on?
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the show, right?
Right. And when you're talking about putting people on a pedestal, one of the ones that really I was kind of surprised by is Chomsky, right?
Yeah, I know. I saw you were talking about that earlier.
And like I a lot of people are making excuses for him, and I'm just like, I was never that impressed with him, right? Because Chomsky was basically repeating what a lot of revolutionaries before him were saying. Most of them were black or from Latin America or something like that, or African, revolutionaries and freedom fighters. And I referred to him on Twitter the other day as like the white man's revolutionary, right? Because like he was criticized a lot by a lot of people in Black America in the civil rights era and things like that, because and even overseas, some of the countries that he would defend against US imperialism, like he tended to overlook what the struggle was on the ground, like what the people were dealing with. So yeah, you can sit here like I do with Cuba, right? I can sit here and say that what the US is doing to Cuba is wrong, but I'm also not going to deny what Cubans are telling me about the stuff they have to go through. So like you can't, and Chomsky got criticized a lot for that. So, I basically said on Twitter that, screw him, like, right. There's a lot of great revolutionary writers out there. Most of them are black, that can easily fill the void for you guys. And, guess what? None of them run around with pedos. So, and I started catching a lot of flack for that. And it's like,
well,
okay, so maybe he didn't, maybe Chomsky didn't do the things that Jeffrey Epstein did, but he did help him, put together a linguistic level excuse to try to downplay what he's doing. And he palled around with him. That's all I said he did. He palled around with pedos. That's what
dude? So I worked in New York for 13 years. I used to hear kind of rumor float around about this guy that was up to some crazy shit. I did not really associate it with being a pedophile as much as he was just kind of like a Eminence Grease behind the scenes, pulling the strings, and people are flying around on his plane. And now, definitely there was the mention of these wild parties. I wasn't rich enough to get invited to nothing like that. Thank God.
Yeah.
But I don't think, man, you know how you always want to think you would do the right thing. I think with a 100% level of certainty that if I fell off into a party and everybody there would look like they need to be at home doing their homework, I'm out.
Yeah.
That is the part that I don't get the, do you not see this is wrong kind of part. I did, and it's so many different people that, okay, Bill Clinton, we know that guy's a hound dog. I'm from Arkansas, so I know about him. I did not put him in this category.
No.
Okay. Now, unfaithful. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Like beautiful women. Okay. Got that. But I did not see him going below Monica Lewinsky's age.
Yeah. That's not something I saw coming.
I did not see that. Now, and I will tell you, being again from Little Rock, back in the day when I was still in Little Rock, Bill was known as being out there. Bill was known as, liking his coffee black. Bill was known, dude. And, it's just, you're in the country, man. It's Arkansas, folks. Just kind of, that's just the way Bill is, right? He was, one of the reasons the securities business took off the way it did in Arkansas is in large part thanks to Bill Clinton, because these guys knew what Bill liked. And so cats would have him at these, these parties, and there'd be a whole lot of snow getting passed around and a whole lot of wild stuff, but not children.
Right.
Women, yes. Okay. But not children. That just wasn't really something that, and I don't know, man. I wonder if when people accumulate so much, there's nothing left and they just start, it's almost like a virus, they just start doing crazy shit. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's got to be something like that, right? Like you have access to everything.
There's no such thing as no.
Right. You have access to everything. You've accomplished everything. You have all the money in the world you'll ever fucking need. So what else is left, right? It's not. I guess it's not enough for some people, and maybe this speaks to having to amass these hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. But I guess it gets to a point where it's just nothing is enough. Nothing satisfies that urge of. It's like I hear addicts say all the time. One of the reasons why some of these drugs, like meth or something, is so addictive is because you're always chasing that first high. That first high
Yep.
is always the best. So
everything's
maybe
downhill from there.
Maybe when a guy like Bezos found out he was a billionaire, maybe that's the high he's trying to chase, and he can't find it no matter how many more billions of dollars he has. And I can see why that's not a high anymore, man. I mean, what is there after $1 billion? What's the point?
I mean,
what's the point?
Again, man, it's one of those things. Like I said earlier, you think, and maybe I'm just too, I don't know, whatever, anal, philosophical. I sit around and think about how would I act?
Yeah,
get $1 billion. Hell, I take $500 million. I think I'd probably, maybe my T-shirt would be a little more expensive, but pretty much I think I'd be the same guy.
Pretty
a
much.
Nicer house, maybe a nicer
house.
car,
Yeah.
But not like a yacht to follow my yacht.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Like a yacht. Dude, when I lived in, I actually lived in New Jersey most of the time that I was in New York, just across the Hudson. So my view was Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah,
and so
that's where I grew up.
Well, and on the backside of where we lived was the golf course, that Liberty National golf course. So, Tiger Woods, dude, he had a yacht that was big enough to have a heliport, like for a helicopter to land on it.
Damn.
So it would come up the Hudson, dude. It's a yacht with a helicopter sitting on top of it. And you know how, people with big boats, you got a dinghy. The dinghy was bigger than most people's actual boat that they might, that was his dinghy that he's pulling behind it. And so then you got Jeff Bezos out here with 2 yachts.
Yeah.
Man, look, to me, it's just gross. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you why I think like that, because when I was in Little Rock, I worked at this shop for about a decade. And I was around guys, the 2 owners, one of them didn't even have I don't think he graduated the 5th grade. He's did elementary school education. Dirt, literally, family was dirt farmers, like lived in an area of the state where the floor of the house was dirt. So grew up poor, made it, got rich, which is, but not in this way. It was like investing in companies, shit, Walmart. They took Walmart public, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you saw these guys, you would never even look at them twice. They're both passed away now. But if you were to, one of them drove like a country squire station wagon to, with the wood on the side.
Yeah.
They had no desire whatsoever to look rich.
Right.
They did not want to be seen as anybody. These guys bought walking around in polyester suits, but they had money, and they knew when to like flex, but it wasn't like, "Ooh, look at me, look at what I just did."
Right.
No. And you know what?
I wouldn't want. Yeah.
There's one of the guys' son took over the firm, and he's Trump's ambassador to the UK now. And you wouldn't know. I know because I know, but he's just not the kind of guy you'll ever read about in the paper. You're never going to hear a scandal about him. And so to me, if you got to be rich, that's the way you be rich.
Yeah.
Just be a regular person,
Yeah, that's the smart way. Honestly, I would be that way simply because I don't want the Epstein types coming. Hey, you want to come party? No, I do not. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm going to sit at home and with my guns and wait for you to come across my yard. I'm going to take your ass out. Like, nope. It's not happening. So, I mean, yeah, I would definitely be very low key with my money. You probably, like you probably wouldn't know, my t-shirt might be newer, than from last Christmas, but
yeah, like I said, I'd have a whole bunch of new stuff.
Yeah.
And I would be more concerned with making sure my kids were straight. Because my biggest concern now, I got a son that's almost a junior in college, at the end of this spring. And my daughter just finished this time, last spring. And just observing the opportunities for them. It's so, dude, I flunked out of college and had better opportunities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do for them is what my parents did not do for me. And I'm not blaming them. I just don't think they were equipped,
right?
Because of just when they came up. We're talking about the 60s. There were like, 4 jobs that everybody black wanted, a postman, a teacher, that kind of thing.
Right.
But you weren't like going, ooh, I want to be the CEO of, IBM. No, that just wasn't on the playlist. Right. So what I'm trying to get, especially my daughter now, I had to really convince her not to jump out and get strapped with expensive apartment, all this stuff that she's 22. That's what she wants to do. But the idea of working for yourself and making, where you don't have to, she's got a talent, a skill. Okay, let's figure out how to formulate a business around that where you don't ever have to wonder, are you going to get paid? Is somebody going to fire you? All of that. Because in this culture we're in now, nothing's safe.
Right. Yeah, nothing is. When I don't know. I came up in the trades mostly, and like you, there was a lot better. There were a lot better opportunities out there. You know, it wasn't hard to find a 20 $25 an hour job in the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, and you know, we're talking like shit shoveling kind of work. You know, dig ditching.
Mhm.
You know, whatever, bricklaying, stonework. You know, did welding for a while, you know, and that was in like in my 20s and stuff. And there was plenty of opportunity. And you can, you know, anywhere you move to, there's somewhere you can go work.
Well, you know what's
You,
crazy
you
is,
just don't see that now.
I mean, all of my friends, you know, when they graduated, they were like, they had offers, you know, like IBM, Southwestern Bell, you know, back
Right.
at the time, you know, just companies like that, that, and, you know, most of it was like, I don't know, sales or, you know, something, but there were opportunities where literally graduate today, next Monday, I'm starting a new job. A friend of, actually a fraternity brother of mine, um, was an engineer, you know, got an engineering degree immediately. Um, you know, Bechtel or one of these big, you know, chemical companies just scooped him
Yeah.
right up, you know. Um, that's just not, even when I was in New York, even before Trump. So we're talking about, I don't know, I guess 2010, 12, I left in 2012. One of my clients, a black guy, um, I'm having lunch with him one day, and I could tell something was like bugging him. And I said, "What, you know, what's up?" And he said, "Well, I'm just sitting here. I've got to go give a talk to some MBA students, and I'm gonna have to explain to them why they ain't gonna have no jobs. Look, you know, there's no jobs for them. You
Wow.
know, I mean, so it was already starting to happen even back then."
Yeah. Yeah. I see, you know, a lot of my nieces, I say a lot, well, it actually is a lot, like 4 or 5 of them, nieces and nephews,
Mm-hmm.
went into the military because of that,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just no real opportunity. And they felt like that was the only way to stay out of poverty. You know,
Yeah.
my brother went into the Marine Corps. That's how he got out of poverty, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, like all his kids have been in the military. One of my older brother's kids went to the military, and that's how they escaped poverty, because there was there. And even now, like the oldest of my nieces and nephews, she just got, you know, criminal justice degree.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and after being in the military, and she can't find any work. And you know, she's here in Texas, and it's just really tough to see that happen. um you know, because she's not old enough to get her military benefits and all that stuff. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she's in caught in the middle. And it's like, I saw somebody in the comments just now talking about how much debt they racked up. And you know, they said something about teaching and being, that's how you get stuck in the poverty class. And that's the same thing, right? You spend as much as a house to get an education, and then when you get out, what's there for you? A 50,000, $60,000 a year salary, and with the debt you have to pay, yeah, you're stuck in the poorhouse for
That's,
God knows
man,
how long.
let me
For how
tell
long?
you,
It's crazy.
in today's economic situation, like middle class, we used to think, oh, if you could make 50 or 60 grand, you know, a year. No, 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 no. You've got to make somewhere in the neighborhood of a hundred, 125.
I saw
You
140. Yeah, I saw
really,
140 recently.
I almost said 150, but I'm just saying minimally, you got to make a buck 25, dude,
Yeah,
just to live by yourself somewhere.
yeah. 10 grand a
You
month.
know,
Yeah, it'll cost you 10 grand a month.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm near Wilmington, North Carolina, and I'm here to tell you, um, 2 or 3 summers ago, I Ubered, and you know, there's a crazy story behind it, but uh, on a dare, somebody said I didn't have the temperament to to engage with people in my car, and I was out to prove something. But anyway, I picked up so many people, and I don't know who I thought the clients would be, but it was people on their way to work. They're literally taking an Uber to go to work at Taco Bell, at McDonald's, you know, and that's how they're getting home. I'm picking up people at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Okay. Just loading up groceries into the, SUV.
Yeah.
That's how they're shopping. But what really got me was, people get in and they're in the back seat and they're just talking, and they, you just kind of stay out of the conversation unless you're invited in. But I can't tell you, young people, and it would be, they're living in a very nice apartment, but it's 3 of them.
Yeah.
And they've got good jobs, what you would
Yeah.
consider a good job. And they don't make enough to live by themselves.
Right. Like right there's that comment. It says my daughter struggles on 80K. I remember when I was a kid, like doctors made 80K and they were like driving Benzes and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like
Dude,
what the hell?
I know what you're saying, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, like wages. Like we hear Bernie Sanders and so many people say this all the time about how the cost of living has gone up so many hundreds of percent and wages have been stagnant. And that's essentially the problem. And the thing is we're mostly being price gouged to death. Like all these companies record profits while we suffer. That should tell you everything you need to know. You know what I'm saying?
What's interesting about that whole phenomenon, and I see this all the time, it's not hidden. People are telling us what they're doing to us. I mean, but they're not telling us. They're talking about it, but they do not. They count on us not being in the place where the conversation is had. I mean, you think about it. How many people do you know that listen in on an earnings call? I mean, it's just, but that's where you can hear these guys, doing real talk, because they got to talk to the people who got money in their companies, and they got to, they got to tell the truth. That's why we have these price spikes, and then the price never comes down. It comes back a little. So this increase in prices, it's never going to be like it was, before COVID.
Right. And like the only way we get prices to come back down is by them giving us less product or less service, or you know what I mean? Like it'll be the same the prices before, but the bottle will be that much smaller. Right. The shrinkflation is what they've been calling it. And it's just, it's hard to say, because like I remember seeing something, and I haven't been able to find it. There was a story somewhere about how all this money that was being put out during COVID, the trillions of dollars and all this stuff, how like billionaires were talking about that's $2 trillion or whatever out there that we can recapture and profit off of. And essentially that's kind of what we saw happen, right? Like
that's exactly what happened.
Right. It was like robber baron. Right. We saw some inflation, but then the rest was price gouging.
Yep.
And they're doing all these different things, like not just shrinkflation, but like, what is it, like changing prices at grocery stores based on the time of day? Like,
oh yeah, this is something that Lena Khan, that was the I guess she was the head of the Federal Trade Commission, I believe, and I wish I'd thought of it. There's a pretty good video where she just kind of goes through. They're not only doing that, they're pricing based on your credit, based on your zip code, based on all these things. Where have you ever seen the movie the Minority Report?
Yes.
Where the dude is walking like and these videos are popping up and they're all tailored to him. How about these shoes? Oh, this is a nice shirt. Just like, everything. They're literally doing that kind of thing. They were. Now, her argument was it's illegal. right? Because
Right.
why you're in Texas, I'm in Arkansas. Why should, for, I don't know, a Diet Coke, why should mine cost more than yours? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
that's
Right.
oversimplifying it, but yeah,
Right.
so there's a lot of that going on still, I think. And not for nothing, we have allowed so many mergers that it's taken the competition totally out of the game.
Right. Yeah.
So the people who are left just kind of get together and say, what we charge it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see, I saw a lot of people, when I was a contractor, go out of business because of things like that, where, something becomes national. I knew some guys did home theaters, right? And these rich mansions downtown, they built big stuff. They put movie theater chairs in there and all this stuff. And, home theater store starts coming around. Circuit City starts doing home theaters. Everybody starts doing home theaters. Everybody's selling flat screens, but you're not allowed to sell them at the price that Best Buy sells them. And all of a sudden, their business, like in a year, is cut in half, if not more. And in a couple of years, they're done. And then a couple of years later, all these big major chains go out of business and sell all their stuff to smaller companies. And it's like, you just took out all these people and all these jobs for nothing. Yep. Yeah. And somebody made a buck off of that, and it wasn't all those guys I knew that lost their businesses, and you see that happen all the time with anybody in the trades or anything like that. You have these national companies that try, even mowing lawns, man. You have national companies trying to take that away from a local guy. It's
Let me
just
tell
ridiculous.
you something, man. This was 20 years ago. My youngest son, had just been born. So we lived in a town, Mount Kisco, New York, right?
Wow.
About an hour outside of town. Well, you know the area, up in Westchester County.
Yeah.
And so, we were renting a house. We're thinking about, okay, this might be a good place to raise our kids and all that. And, you're responsible for keeping the yard up. And our next door neighbor actually owned the house that we were renting. And they said, we've got a guy that we use and we'll put you in touch with him. It was this white guy, and I was like, that's kind of a surprise. He don't look like a guy that does yard
Right.
work. Well,
Right.
Guess what? He was the guy that we made our deal with. But when the day rolled around for the yard to get cut, a young man, Latino, barely spoke any English. That's the guy that did the work. And I grew up cutting grass, man. So that was really surprising. I'm like, wait a minute. Why is this guy showing, who's he?
Yeah.
Well, he was a guy, it was like you described earlier. We're paying back then, it was like $100 to, because there was all kind of shrubs and stuff that we had to deal with. I mean, so we're paying $100 for this guy to do the work.
Yeah.
He wasn't getting $100.
No.
And I mean, this guy was he was like hesitant for asking like for a drink of water.
Yeah.
It was like he had been told, do not interact.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we just don't really, that's just not how we operate. And so, it would be hot. I mean, I don't need this guy having a stroke in my yard, right?
Right.
It's like he really didn't want to stop working. And, he just, and it was really funny because I would walk to the train station, was like maybe a mile away. And that would be my little morning constitutional, get up at 5 o'clock, walk to the train station. And I would pass through this little section, and everybody except for folks like me who are going into the city, and everybody else was Latino because they're getting up, they're going to, do whatever, maids, domestic work, cutting grass, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't see nobody else that was black. Right. I didn't see nobody else that was white that wasn't getting on the train. It was just a little subsection of town that was nothing but Latino.
Yeah. Yeah. That when you were saying earlier about, people using Uber for groceries, it reminded me of being a kid. Like, I remember with my mom dragging the three boys to the grocery store. We'd ride the bus to the grocery store, but had to call a cab to go home
Okay.
because we had the groceries.
Yep.
And you know, we lived in a really poor situation, and like, you know, you see these people like they can't afford a car, so they're wasting money on Ubers, and Ubers aren't cheap, you know.
Man, I know. That's
and
what
like,
really puzzled me, because I was like, okay, I'm taking you to work at McDonald's. And, you know, some people I could get in a conversation with them. I'm like, okay, you know, I'm picking you up from work and it's like rush hour.
Yeah.
So you're spending like $20 a day to go back and forth to work.
Right.
And I'm taking them, you know, to, you know, the hood, the, you know, low income housing, wherever it might be.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's depressing, dude.
You're lucky. They're lucky if they're making $100 a day. You know?
I know.
You know what I mean? So there's like 30% of their income getting wasted just getting to work, and that's fucked up. You know what I mean? That's a cost of
cats. And this was the thing that really, they're living in brand new homes, whole neighborhood of homes, paying like $2-3 grand a month.
Yeah.
Rent. That's private equity.
Yeah.
Right there.
It is.
Buying up whole neighborhoods, building whole neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Not for you to own a house, but for you to rent a house.
Yeah. My son bought a house last year. Well, not even a year ago. And it was in a neighborhood that was built to be a rent to own community. Or not rent to own. They call them build to rent communities, where, you know, they just build houses just to rent. And they're owned by like private equity and stuff like that. Well, the neighborhood apparently didn't do well, so now they're selling the houses, and you know, he got a decent deal on one. So,
good,
you know, he moved. That's where they're at now. But yeah, the whole neighborhood is, you know, a lot of for sale signs, and they're all from the same company, and that's because they're trying to get out.
First moved to North Carolina. You know, we literally moved here, lived with family for about a year, just so our kids would have like their cousins to be around, and we could get our situation straight. So we move, we go and we're looking, and just like you said, the entire neighborhood, we're like, they're not even real estate agents to show you the house. It's like a QR code.
Yeah.
And you just, you know, fill out something and scan the code, and the door opens, and you just go on in, or they give you the key code, you know, on the little box thing. Yeah. And I was curious about this. I'm like, I haven't seen this before. And sure enough, a billionaire, it was American Homes for Rent, the name of the company. And it was everywhere. Every home that was available, they're the ones. And that company, I assume still is, was owned by a billionaire, the majority shareholder, you know, whatever. And he also owned the storage places, like National Storage or whatever, you know, these big, gigantic, you know, where they got like 200 units or whatever, and it's for storage. So he had the storage place for you to put your shit that didn't fit in the house that you're renting from him.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, they had it to nuts. Look, you know, we're kind of closing in. We got 10 minutes, but I wanted to really play another clip and talk about it real quickly, because I think it really underscores, you know, we spend a lot of time talking about Democrats and why they behave the way they do, you know, and I ran across this one, and it's, I think, interesting. And I'll just play it and we'll talk on the other side.
Doge, this is what you posted. I'm ready to work with Doge to slash waste. I have a track record of doing so. Let me ask you this question, Congressman Khanna. Why do you take Elon at his word? Why did you do that?
Well, because of his track record with SpaceX, right? He worked with Ash Carter and President Obama to break the Boeing and Lockheed monopoly. Boeing and Lockheed used to basically be the only people who would put satellites into space. And they were like, okay, we can't reuse a spacecraft once it goes into space, or a rocket. You can only use it once. And Elon was like, no, you can actually reuse it. And he dramatically lowered cost. He beat the monopoly of the defense contractors, and he slashed costs. So I said, this guy understands that there's huge bloated waste in the Pentagon. And so I said, maybe Elon is the guy who's finally going to take on the Pentagon waste. But I still get criticized for saying that, oh, I was open at any time to working with
Well,
Elon.
look at this. This is one of the top comments underneath this post. This is from Carl Bodie. Doge is a fake government agency designed to provide flimsy, innovative efficiency, cover to corrupt robber barons as they dismantle federal corporate oversight and sell the country for scrap off the back loading dock. Any politicians or journalists helping the performance should be laughed at. Next slide. It continues. It's also going to be leveraged to harass government employees, especially if they're Democrats, female, or a minority. You should be embarrassed for being such a rube. Now, Congressman, who do you think had a more accurate view of Doge, you or this random Carl?
The random Carl ended up being more right. I mean, not 100% right, but more right. I mean, Doge did a tremendous amount of damage. And the reality is they broke agencies. They fired veterans without cause. They got rid of U.S. aid, which is going to cost the lives of people in Africa. They dismantled the Federal Drug Administration, the National Institute of Health, and they didn't save much money. So he's absolutely right that it turned out not to be a productive effort. That's why I voted to subpoena him. That's why I turned against what he was doing very vocally. But I wanted to give it a chance because the concept of Doge, of actually going after real waste, is a good one.
Yeah, the concept is a good one, but when you have a dishonest broker, that's what happens, and that's what everybody was trying to tell Democrats. He is not an honest broker.
Well, you got to think about it. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe he just wanted to give Elon a chance. Think about what he had to ignore at that point. Trump has won the election. These guys come in and they're just wrecking shit left and right. What evidence would have made him think Elon Musk was up to like doing some good?
I mean, we know he wasn't going to go after the Pentagon. You know what I mean? I mean, that's where a lot of Elon Musk's money comes from, and government contracts comes from the Pentagon.
Well, speaking of money, you know what's the tech industry butters Ro Khanna's bread. Okay.
Well, yeah.
And so to me, that is the problem, again, and, we could do a whole nother show on, just talking about money and politics, but I just don't think he's that dumb that he would have said, ooh, maybe Elon's going to do something that will help us. I mean, you got to keep in mind, this guy was doing all kinds of crazy shit. Yeah. Not to mention, he's got Twitter, just basically running a disinformation campaign. And so Ro Khanna wants us to believe he's like open to working with this guy that's basically, well,
And here's the thing too, he tried to use Elon Musk's track record with breaking the monopoly between, let's make something absolutely clear. The reusable rockets and all that stuff that Elon Musk takes credit for, that is from NASA. That was in the public domain. That was there for anybody to use whenever they wanted to. And Elon Musk had a little money to put up front, and he had all the right people in place to get all those government grants and all that money. And he took money from NASA. So he didn't make anything more efficient. He just split the bill. So while NASA might look more efficient,
Elon's superpower is getting grants, not inventing stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's not invented anything. But anyway,
he's bought everything.
I just wanted to put that out there because, one thing I want this show to be about is I think both of us share very similar politics. I come at it from we come at it from different backgrounds, but that doesn't mean that I have, a whole ton of love for what Democrats are doing right now. There are
Right.
certain people that I'm definitely a fan of. If you watch this show or follow me on social media, you know who they are. But and look, I'm not saying Ro Khanna is a totally bad guy. I think there's something to. I don't think Democrats and Republicans are just alike, but there are some commonalities when it comes down to why they behave the way they do. And I
Right.
think when you really drill down to the surface level with a lot of guys or a lot of people like Ro Khanna, there's a little thing of, there's some money in the background that's driving that behavior,
Right.
I think. Now, I don't think he takes money from PACs, but if you just kind of Google him real quick, you'll see there's a concentration of money that comes from the tech industry, from individuals, but
Right.
still.
And he can't upset that by bashing one of them, because the minute he does, then they start thinking, oh, well, look, he can do that to me. But if he's defending Elon Musk, the worst of the worst, they
Yep.
can look at him and be like, well, at least I know he'll defend me, because I'm not nearly as bad as Elon Musk. And I, it's obviously basic what I'm saying, but on some level, it's kind of like that. And when you have partnerships that involve lots of money and politics and power and all these things come into play, and sometimes after seeing some of the stuff in the Epstein files, it really is that basic.
Yeah.
It really is that simple. These people are really simpletons, dude, with a lot of money.
Listen,
not
man,
smart.
I
They're
saw
not
a
smart.
conversation where they were just like these emails. It's like Giordardis said, they really tell you a whole lot about how these people think. It's not the social media stuff you see them post. Like he said,
Right.
somebody else is doing that more than likely. But I saw some, and where the back and forth was like taxes. Is Biden going to raise our taxes? Or maybe it was Obama. I forget which, but that was the concern. And it's like, here we got this cadre of people who've got every fucking thing.
Yeah. And it's not
And
enough.
they're not even the least bit interested in how they can help somebody that doesn't have at all. They're just interested in keeping, whatever the fuck they've got and getting more of it. And, so those people can be Democrats, Republicans, or other.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to be, lay the marker down that we're not here to just mindlessly defend Democrats, because there is plenty of room for improvement there.
Right. I mean, one of the things that I always point out is ending homelessness, right? There's different estimates from different groups, and it's like something like 18 to 25 billion a year to end
Yep.
homelessness. You can get everybody off the street for $18 billion a year right now.
Mhm.
And, you look at how much money we spend on, say, something like Homeland Security, which it's just an agency we
Dude,
don't
No,
need.
just ICE, right? 170 billion.
Right. But
That's
like
insane.
Homeland Security spends roughly 300 billion a year, and it's an agency we don't need. Like the FBI can be the FBI without Homeland. Like you can still
Listen,
do
man,
borders. You know
That's
what I mean?
the
Like,
thing when you talk
that's so
when
stupid.
you're talking about a guy like Elon Musk, and he's running around talking about
Saving money.
fraud and abuse and bloat and all this stuff, and the first place he wants to look is at Obamacare.
Right.
USAID. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
Social Security. Right.
It's nuts. So look, man, I posted one of your articles in the chat.
All right.
Why don't you kind of give us the rundown on what you're saying there? I haven't had a chance to read it myself. So
Well, it's basically I'm looking at all these numbers that Homeland Security keeps putting out as far as like how many people they've deported. They say ICE has deported 675,000, and something like 2.2 million have self-deported. Just thinking of 3 million people leaving a country in one shot is obviously.
wait. So you're saying 3 million people thus far in like
That's
the
what
last
that's
year?
that's the claim, but the reality is The reality is about 50 or 60,000 have self-deported through
Okay.
the CBP1 app, not 2.2 million. And then roughly about 350 to 400,000 people have been deported by ICE. And that's a big number. But the article that I cover, that I'm discussing here is why, what is the benefit of lying about these numbers? And it's not the obvious is they want to make themselves look more successful than they really are.
Sure.
But the reality is that these numbers help bolster the last 10 years of lies about immigrants, about being criminals, about being the reason why housing costs are so high, the reason why this and the reason why that. And when anytime something good happens, they can point back and say, look, it's because we deported 3 million people in 1 year when they didn't. And they also puts all these problems, social problems, on immigrants. And that's the kind of racism that lingers on for a while. So yeah, the article goes into that stuff, why it's racist, the damage it'll do for years to come. And, it basically, goes down. It's an analysis, but, we've been discussing race and politics for so long that it's a good analysis. It's a pretty deep one. I put some thought into that one for a couple of weeks before I even started. I'm like, these guys are devious as hell.
Well, and the thing is, you when you say that you've been lying about there being 30 million people here.
Yeah.
So you got to come up with a big number. I mean, 500,000 people doesn't really do the trick,
Right.
Well, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up, folks. Definitely, give Arturo's piece a read. I'm sure I'm certainly going to do it. I'll probably be, using some of your stuff to make some of my points. I'm sure.
There you go, man. Why not? Right.
Yep,
we that's another thing. We need to cite each other more,
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Well, it's about that time, man. We just we hit the top of the hour. We made it. Nothing blew up. My my laptop isn't smoking. Hopefully folks were able to to catch it. Now we'll have a recording that'll go out shortly after, and on YouTube I'm sure there'll be a recording that folks can access. So not bad for our first time out.
Not bad at all. And we streamed where? To YouTube and Facebook?
We streamed to, we were on Substack. We're on YouTube and on Facebook. I have to look. I'm not exactly sure. I think it posted or live streams just to my, my personal Facebook account. I have a page for the Journeyman, but that's, I'm going to have to get some technical help to, to sort that out. I'm going to go back and just look and see where it popped up. I probably got, people shouting at me on Facebook like, dude, what are you doing? But anyway, hey, not bad though for our first.
Yeah, it was good
round, huh?
Yeah, we did good.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a show with no name, and we will be back, same bat time, same bat place, 6 o'clock Eastern on Thursdays, and we will see you then. Take care.
Guys. Bye, y'all.